Shabbat Shalom and Chag Sameach, folks. This is Rabbi Stephen, or Rob Shmuel, here with you for another 10-minute Torah. And as you can see, I'm doing both weeks at one time because it's all about Passover. So, as I said in last week's 10-minute Torah, last week's discussion, we have Passover. There is a Torah reading for each day, and each day it revolves around a different aspect of Passover. Some of it involves the history of what was the first Passover, which was in Egypt, where the Israelites were getting ready to leave, and they were going to go out during the day. They were preparing at night, but they were going out during the day. They were going to go in full view in front of everybody, and there was going to be no sneaking. They were going to go out with their heads held high as a strong people, and they were going to venture over to their new land, the promised land, the land that Hashem promised to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. So that's Passover. And we observe Passover for 7 days, or actually 8 days out in the diaspora, because this is what God commanded us to do. God said, observe this as a 7-day festival. So there are 4 or 5 different festivals the year. Rosh Hashanah is typically 2 days. I don't know that the reason fits into the 2 days for Rosh Hashanah, but way back when, it took a while for messages to get out to Jews as we spread out, throughout the world when we left Israel, or whether they were, outlying communities. The way the calendar was set is that the Sanhedrin, which was the great court, it was like the Jewish Supreme Court. You had 71 elders. The 71st elder was the high priest. And they would declare the new month based on 2 witnesses citing the crescent moon. And they would report back to the Sanhedrin. The Sanhedrin would say, okay, so the new month began, right? They're doing it in hindsight because you don't see a moon when it's that day. But if this was the crescent, then it was a day or so before, and that's it. An interesting discussion arose over this. The sages said, why do we need people, witnesses, to do this every month? Because at one point in our history, the calendar was fixed. Every month had 30 days. Now, there were some months that only had 29 because in the lunar calendar, the moon doesn't make it's not a rotation or revolution every exactly 30 days. It's something like 29 and a half, 29 and 3/4. And that's, by the way, what the word Moad refers to. It refers to the exact time that we have that new month. So we can't make all the months 30 days. So a couple have to be 29. There are 2 months, Kislev and Heshbon and Kislev, that sometimes are 29, sometimes they're 30. And when they're 29, when they're the months that are only 29 days, you only have a 1-day Rosh Chodesh. If they're 30, you have 2 days. So you have the 30th of the day and the first day of the next month. So you have the Rosh Chodesh. That's when we do the special service. We have a special Musaf. We do Hallel. And speaking of Hallel, we are doing Hallel on Passover. Passover is a festival. It commemorates a great event, the event that we basically became a people. And as I told you last week, because we left Egypt and started a new chapter in our history as a new people, 2.5 million strong, then this is the new year. This is the secular year. So Pesach 8, Passover 8, the 8th day of Passover, is this year on Shabbat. Sometimes it's not on Shabbat, so the Torah reading is adjusted based on that. If you notice, for Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, sometimes those days are on Shabbat, sometimes they're not. When they're on Shabbat, you have 7 aliyot, 7 witnesses coming up, 7 readings. And when it's not on Shabbat, Rosh Hashanah, you have 5 readings. And on Yom Kippur, you have 6. So why the 7 readings? Let's talk about that a little bit, because there's not, let's have a learning session here, aside from what we're going to talk about with the Torah. So we know that on Shabbat we have 7 readings. Now, 7 is actually the minimum. 7 on Shabbat, and also, yes, in Torah, you can call up as many people as you want. We've done it here. We called up. We had 8 readings once when we had somebody come up and do a special reading. And that wasn't within the scheme of things. The Rabbinical Assembly, and actually goes way back to, I believe, Maimonides, who started this whole idea of reading the Torah once a week. We didn't do this all the time. If you read in the Torah, the Israelites would come like every 7 years when there was a Shemitah year, when you had the sabbatical year. They weren't farming, so what did they do? They studied. They came to the temple, and the high priest would read portions from Deuteronomy. They do that on Sukkot, on one of the pilgrimage festivals. But that really was it. But once we got, and the big thing back then was offerings. In fact, the Torah didn't really even get put together until the building of the Second Temple, when Ezra and Nehemiah came back from Babylonia. When King Cyrus said, "All right, go back and rebuild your temple." That's when they started putting the Torah together. The Tanakh, the Hebrew Scriptures, the actual whole thing came later. But this is the actual Torah. So there really was no Torah to read in the First Temple. I mean, they had it, yeah, but it's not like they wrote it down and studied it the way we do now. It was all centered around offerings, and it was really the kings that wrote down the Torah and how to study it. The Levites, of course, were scattered around, and they're the ones that taught, the principles of the Torah to the people. So the actual system of reading Torah didn't arise till actually modern history, maybe 300, 400, 500 years ago, and that's when they decided, okay, 7 aliyot, and we'll just designate which aliyot. And they had to be a little careful because they didn't want it. When you have certain themes going on in the Torah, you don't want to interrupt those themes. So some portions are a little bit larger, some portions are a little bit smaller, like Song of the Sea. That's a larger portion. So on Shabbat we have 7. On Yom Kippur we have 6. On Rosh Hashanah, Passover, Sukkot, and Shavuot we have 5. So when we have just a Rosh Hashanah during the week, we only have 5 readings. When we have it on Shabbat, we take those 5 readings divided into 7. And to continue, we have 4 readings when it's a reading during the week and there's a full moon, because there's the extra reading for the full moon. And if it's a Monday or Tuesday, when we typically have a minyan, a weekday minyan, there's only 3, aliyot, Kohen, Levi, and Yisrael. Okay, so this particular portion, okay, on Passover, starts out talking about the firstborn. It also talks about the remittance of debt, very important concepts. Now, as you might expect, the idea of the firstborn or the idea of the remittance of debt is tied to the Passover. So since during Passover the destroyer passed over the Israelite first and didn't destroy the Israelite firstborn, we talk about the consecration of the firstborn. And it's a process. You're all aware of Pidyon Haba, when the man and wife have the first son. They go to the priest or the rabbi, and they exchange money to ransom. It's kind of a ceremony. It's not to be taken specific, exact, but it's kind of a ceremony. And we consecrate the firstborn to Hashem as a thanks. And this helps us remember. So how did the Seder come about? Why is there a Haggadah? Because the commandment in the Torah says, you will remember this day. You will teach it to your children. And the 4 sons is embedded. Those questions are embedded in the Torah. When your son asks you, why is this a holiday to you? Or you will tell your child, that's where they got the idea for the Haggadah. The sages put it together. They said, well, the commandment is to tell it to your children, so let's do a Seder. Let's make it a Seder. Let's compose a Haggadah which addresses the themes of Passover and the questions of the firstborn and why is this night different, etc., etc. So there's also talks about when you have the first fruits, the firstborn of your cattle or your animals, that's also consecrated to the priest. Then there's the remittance of debts. What does this have to do with Egypt? Well, we worked for the Egyptians as slaves for over 100 years, 110, 112 years. So quite a lot of back pay was owed to us, wouldn't you think? So when they say borrow, and it wasn't really borrow, but take gold and jewels and silver and whatever from your Egyptian neighbors. The Egyptians gladly gave it to them. Maybe they just kind of finally sympathized with him, or maybe they thought we better do this before more of us start dying. But anyway, they were given. So the sages say that when you release a slave after 7 years, or on the seventh year, then you send them away with gifts so that they can get their life started. And what if you give somebody a loan in the 6th year, knowing that it's going to be forgiven in the 7th year? You do it anyway. Now, later on, Hillel devised this thing called prosbul, where a person sells the debt to the Sanhedrin or the court, and now they can get their full money. But the point of the Torah is that you don't worry about it, because you understand that God's going to reward you handsomely for giving this charity, helping somebody get started, and that's basically all you need to know. So that's all I need to. That's all you need to know from me for this week. Shabbat Shalom, Chag Sameach. Again, we're starting at 9:30. It's going to be a longer service, so we will, Hallel, a special Musaf, and we'll see you then. Thanks for listening.